Okay, so hello. This is going to be a little bit different from usual because it's not primarily focused around map making, but it's still quite useful. So I've been working on something different this time, which is texture making. Um, I was trying to think of the best way to make a way to export textures in Magicka, right? And sadly I could not come up with something that was too clean. I do have a few ideas, but I eventually reached the conclusion that it would be much more beneficial to just make another tool. So right now we go to the output files, which if I find it, it should be pages.json. So if we pick the pages xmb file, which contains the image for the pages in the book on the main menu, uh, this outputs right now a, let me check one thing, sorry. It right now loads up this file right here. So this file right here is a JSON file. It's the basic format with which Magicka works. And this JSON file, which is pretty large for this example actually, contains a list of data with every single MIP map generated for this specific texture, right? So with this we could work potentially to generate files, but it was going to be a hassle to deal with, right? So in this case, right now the image only has one MIP, which is basically the default image. There are no MIP maps generated, but that's okay. So if you look at this right here, it says MIP count 1. Yeah, that's right. But this is important thing, format 32. So if you look at the code from Magicka, right, on the XNA framework, the code for format 32 corresponds with DXT5 files, right? And DXT5 is a kind of compression algorithm for DDS files. So that means that every single texture within Magicka internally is a compressed DDS file in the lossy compression format, DXT5, right? So what this meant is that the idea that I had was originally to make a tool that would read this JSON file and compress it into a DDS file, right? Or pick a DDS file and you had to manually save it with something like paint.net or whatever tool for image editing into a compressed DXT5 image, right? But I found that was going to be too much of a hassle, especially for our users, because it would force you to basically work on whatever file format you prefer and then save as a DDS at the end, which is not that bad, right? But it was going to be a pain in the ass. So I finally got, with a little bit of help, working the XNA DLLs installed on my computer, and I've used them to make another tool called MagickaTex. So that's a really bad name actually, but it's for textures basically. So MagickaTex is this tool right here, whose purpose is to basically it's a very short tool. It makes use of the functionality already implemented within the XNA framework to pack and unpack images. Curiously enough, loading DDS files fails entirely when using it with the file format offered by XNA, so I don't know what's up with that. But yeah, basically every single other file format works, and most people work with PNGs anyway. So yeah, well, with PNGs and TGAs when it comes to modding games, that's like the best or most common formats. So this tool right here works pretty nicely to both pack and unpack images. So let me demonstrate one moment right here. If we come over to this folder right here, we can go ahead and we've got, well, I got some C name folders as a test. But let's go ahead and say the folders that you have to work with in this tool are the packed and unpacked folders, and the 2pack and 2unpack. So those are terrible names, I know, but basically it's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, it's disgusting looking, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Anything that goes within the 2pack folder is a file that is an image, like a PNG, DDS, TGA, BMP, whatever, JPEG, etc., that's going to be packed into an XMB texture, which is going to be inside of the packed folder. This is where the results will be stored. And the 2unpack is where you're going to be placing XMB files, and you're going to be unpacking them into whatever file format you choose. By default, the tool uses PNG as of now, and this is where all of the textures will be unpacked, right? And I've made some tests, and it does not crash when using files generated by this, so that means that it's working correctly, right? So that's good. But let's make a small demonstration. So let's say that we got to unpack all of these XMB files that have been extracted from the game files. Let's put them into unpack, and I'm gonna get rid of this one right here. So we got all of these things right here, and where we have the unpacked, this is the unpacked image. I'm gonna delete it, so we're gonna regenerate it again, right? So we go over to the tool, we run it, and it's the unpacker knows that there are 35 textures to extract in that folder, right? So it extracts them, and as of now the folder names are hard-coded, but I will be adding an option to make it whatever folder you want, right? Obviously this is still a command line utility, although you're kind of forced to run this on a GUI environment because it's using XNA. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to use XNA, but whatever. So it finished unpacking everything, and actually it even packed one texture because I forgot to delete everything within the packed folder, right? But anyways, let's go here, and as you can see, unpack generate all of these textures right here with the XMB files. So we got the dead foliage, we got all of this stuff. Like having this right now, you can make shrubs in game. Like you can go to the level editor, you put this texture into Blender, right? Well, I called it level editor, but into Blender with the plugin Magicka, and you can just unwrap your planes properly, and you got yourself a bunch of shrub meshes, right? You can even get a pile of spider eggs. You can get wood, lots of plants. Like here, this files got absolutely everything that you could ever dream of when wanting to make plants that look just like in Magicka. So it's pretty good. It even supports transparency out of the box, right? This is the pages file, etc. Everything has been extracted, right? Even the normal maps, it all works, right? You can even make trees. You can see the assets are pretty simple, and you can of course make your own assets or modify the ones from the base game. So now that we got this here right here, we can go ahead and pick any of these things. We're gonna, for example, go and pick the pages file, right? We're gonna copy it, and we're going to pack, and well, we had it already here. I'm gonna delete it and paste the file that I want again to demonstrate that it's the one that I'm talking about. No cheating right here. In packed, I've got a bunch of files that are already packed, so I'm gonna get rid of them, right? And if we go ahead and run the program again, well, it's going to overwrite all of the files, so it's gonna take a while. It's going to extract them again unless you empty the folder. That's why I want to add the command line utility input parameter, so that you can say I want to pack, I want to unpack. Right now it does everything always, right? But anyways, it packed the file, which was basically instantaneous. The unpacking was what took most time, and actually the pages file is the one that takes the most out of the unpacking process. So we go to packed, and here's the pages XMB file that we just packed. So if we go over to the files of the game, which is right here, this is the original one. I installed the game on this computer apparently back in 2022, right? And I could just go ahead and rename this file and pick this one and put it in here. And if we run the game, it's not going to crash, which is basically the main thing about modding in Magicka is making sure that it does not crash. Then it means that the texture is being loaded properly, right? Because if it crashed, I already tested it out by making a malformed file. When it crashes at the beginning, it means that it didn't work correctly, because obviously it crashed. But apart from that, the pages file is loaded to be rendered at the beginning of the game when it's first loaded, right? Because it's not like a texture used specifically in one level. It's a texture that is preloaded at the beginning when you boot the game, because it's one of the first things that's going to be shown. So it doesn't look any different from the default game because it's already in main menu. But don't worry, we can demonstrate it works if you still don't believe it. And yes, I know it's a very old copy of Photoshop, but like, it's what I am most comfortable with. Don't judge me. So here we go. We got the image, and we can basically make any changes we want to it. We could potentially, for example, make a smiley face for this guy, and I don't know, draw faces on each and every single one of them. I don't know why green is sad when yellow is the one that dies all the time, but whatever. And we can even go ahead and, I don't know, let's just make a red line all over the page, because it would be super obvious where the change is, right? Okay, we can deal with this, fuck everything up, just paint all over the place actually. And we can even change the color, but whatever, we're gonna deal with this. This is good enough, I think, right? To demonstrate what I'm trying to do. So we can file and save, right? And if we come over here, this is the picture now. It's obviously not pretty to look at. We're against paying the cost of unpacking when we don't even want to unpack, but whatever. It's just a showcase video. So if we go over to, where is it again? Here. So when we go to my packed images, this was generated right now 806, right? We can go over to the menu file, paste it, replace, and obviously you can also replace assets during runtime, but if it's already in use, it won't affect it because you won't be able to see the changes. But anyways, if it didn't crash right now, that's a good sign. Okay, let's see if it worked. And now that we're in here, look at that, it's all painted over. Curiously, this image appears to use a different one, huh? But everything else is painted, so I will have to research where this image comes from, because we did paint the faces on top of those guys, right? Anyway, it did work. Not what I expected. I thought this would appear in there as well, but whatever. And yeah, this is pretty nice, right? You can edit even the main menu if you want to make a completely different game on top of Magicka. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so obviously this is pretty cool for editing assets that already exist, but this is also even cooler if you think about making assets that didn't exist, right? So let's go ahead to the 2-pack and just get rid of all of these files because I don't want to go through paying that price again. And let's, for example, let's just focus on this guy right here. If we edit this guy, we can see that this texture is 256 by 256. Okay, so we know that Magicka uses mostly this kind of resolution. Okay, whatever, let's make a 256 by 256 image. So if we go over to my to unpack folder, it has to be empty. Okay, 2-pack. Let's just get rid of this and make a new one and make a bitmap. Yeah, well, I don't want to make it a VMP actually. Let me just go over to paint. So change the size to 256. Oops. Okay, we can just make it, for example, the typical orange texture or whatever. like this is a Valve game. It's not exactly, but whatever. You get what I'm trying to do. Let's just lower the resolution a little bit for this one, like 20 would be, no, 18. Actually 24 should be good because Magicka is a game that's pretty tiny when you look at it from afar. So I would appreciate being able to read the text from afar. Yeah, whatever. Good enough for me. Let's just save this as empty tile png. Terrible name actually, but we'll deal with that. So if we go over to downloads and pick my empty tile and put it into pack, we got this empty tile texture right here. Okay, let's just change this name actually to empty tile 256px. Yeah, I guess that's a better name. So we can go over to Blender now and open the map, and I haven't changed anything in the Magicka tool actually. It's still the same overall, but I will get around to making more changes later. So when we go over to the houses, if we come here, rather than saying base stone, we could actually go ahead and say that we want this to be a mod tile 256 or whatever name did I pick. It was empty tile. Let's just, rather than empty tile, let's rename this to tile 256px, something simpler, right? So tile 256px, right? So we got the tile 256px right here, and we're going to go over to wherever I've got my Python add-ons. Actually, I need to open that folder up, just 1 minute. So we go over to Python tests, Blender add-ons, and here we go. We got the base folder, a bunch of backups and tests, and we'll just make it mod, for example, right? That's the name that I gave to it. I'm gonna make a new one, so let's pick the stone, put it in here, and just rename this to tile 256px, right? And we can go ahead and say it's an effect deferred, alpha, whatever, blah blah blah. Let's just go ahead. Where is the has second set false? Perfect. No normal maps, nothing. And rather than going to /textures, we go into /textures mod, for example. That will be the folder I'm going to be created. And rather than surface, let's just get rid of this and directly pick whatever we're going to be calling it. So this is the name of the file without the extension, right? So let's just go ahead and pick, we set tile 256px. Great. So that's what we're going to be naming that. And let's go over here. Let's take the path. We can file, export JSON, and put the path in here. Export this file. It's going to take a while, and there we go. We got the file exported. So remember that. Now we want to go back to the to-pack stuff, and we're going to be packing this up. And once we got it packed, whoops, what do we get? The size of the data is too large or too small. I think I may have gotten the wrong file format actually. Alright, this is future me. I actually found where the problem is located. It was in the get bytes per pixel function, because, you know, as far as I know, XNA framework does not offer a built-in way to do this. The problem comes from the fact that I had accidentally mistyped the surface format right here before I said that surface format BGR32 was 2 bytes. It's not true. I meant to type BGR565, right? Because the VGR and whatever numbers or that type of format, those mean how many bits are for each channel, right? So for example, the BGR 565 means that there's 5 bits for red channel, 6 for green, and 5 for blue, and that makes sense because the human eye usually, the average human eye can detect more tones of green than it can from from red and blue. So it makes sense to have that kind of format. But anyway, the point is that 565 implies how many bits there are. So in total those would be 16 bits, and those are 2 bytes. So yeah, that's the case in which it should be 2, and I accidentally mistyped that. So I'm going to be adding that to the code. Surface format dot bgr 5, well, we got 565, right? Return 2. And there are other cases apart from this one. But for now, I'm not going to implement any of those because I don't really have any need for them. But they will come eventually when I figure out what file format requires those types, right? So yeah. This time around, yep, it worked. So anyway, we got the DDS working. We packed it up into a tile 256px XMB file, and we can just go ahead, and if we come over to, where is this here? So menu. Let's get rid of, well, no, let's keep the modded menu one. I like it. And go into levels, and here's where the textures folder is, right? Well, we said that I was gonna make one named textures mod. Right, so let's make a folder named textures mod. Inside of textures mod, we just drop the XMB file because this is the path that I set, just within textures mod, tile 256, whatever, right? Nothing else. So I can now go over to downloads, pick my untitled JSON, and we can go over to test files and overwrite it. So now that we got it in here, we can go over to Magicka Pop, which, by the way, I still haven't finished, so I need to get rid of this manual fix-up stuff, right? We can just compile the thing, and it's already written the XMB file, great. So we'll look over to test files, and it should be untitled XMB at 816. 609. Great, yeah, it's this. Wow, it's 609. I did not realize that. I'm sorry. I had too much fun reading that. So we got the textures mod. We go over to levels. It's in challenges where I've got it located, so we just replace the file, right? And if we launch the game and I did everything right, it should not crash, and we should potentially see the world painted with a custom texture, right? So let's see if that works out or not. If it does, I'm gonna make a party. Throw one of the greatest parties in all of time. Anyway, challenges, this one right here, that's messed up with the whole red marker stuff. So let's start it out and see if it crashes or if it works. Because I haven't tested this out yet, so it's all new territory for me. But if I get it to work first try, it's gonna be awesome. Taking too much time to load. Oh, holy shit. Holy shit, it worked! So there we go. What do you think? We got a custom texture going. Yeah, that's pretty nice, pretty cool. We could have fixed the UV unwrapping stuff to make it look actually decent, you know? But yeah, oh, by the way, I forgot to remove the collision. In the first video there was a tree in here, and the collision is still there even though I removed the tree. So yeah, and if everything's working correctly, I should be able to also freeze everything and collide with everything without the game crashing. So yeah. yeah, this is working pretty nice. So that's all there is for me to show today. Basically, we got working absolutely everything. We can even make custom texture for our maps, right? So rather than making this weird tile texture, I could just make an actual stone or whatever texture. I can make my own normal maps. I can make whatever I want, right? Like, there is so much potential in here. There's so much stuff that can be done. This is pretty cool. This is really cool, actually. So yeah, there's not much else for me to showcase, so I'll be just going for now by burning myself into lava. And also, as a final note, I just wanted to say that I want to at least offer a standard library of textures for my tooling system, I guess, right? So by the time I release it, I will be releasing it with some of these pre-made textures that people can use on their own to work with without having to implement their own textures if they want to make debug maps or whatever, right? So, and they could also use this as reference for different sized images or tiles or whatever, right? It's not really that important, but I thought it would be cool to offer tiles to go from 32 pixels to 2048. So we got a 32 by 32 all the way to up to a 2048 by 2048. So that's pretty much all there is to it.